Drinks Coach. This is a quick kind of catch-up, really. I felt immense sense of guilt that I haven't mentioned these guys before. They religiously send me new samples when they produce new products. I was in the back of my mind thinking, well, you know what? I think I'll give them a show one day, and I didn't know when, by the way. Vinesack, if you want to talk to me on social media, or Drinks Coach UK, or lowercase. You're on YouTube right now. As much information as I can give you is on the pull down. Today we're talking about the Lakes Distillery. I was born in Kendal, in the Lakes, the Lake District. Very beautiful part of Britain. And also I was heavily involved with my dear friend Nick de McMahon in a very good gin called Langton's Lakeland Gin. We had our own spring near Keswick in the lakes, which we made a really rather wonderful gin out of. And it appears that there are other wonderful distilleries cropping up all over the country, but also more specifically in my birthplace of the Lake District. Dival Gandhi, an Indian who really wants to express a distillery producing products which had a sense of place, which is very much what we tried to do back in the day. Here we have it. I just wanted to show you the bottles that I've already drunk. Here we are. This is the Lakes Gin. I can't tell you the last time I drank such a pure, crisp, juniper-driven gin that had such lovely texture. It's not a London dry gin, but it's absolutely classic. It has the added flavour of black pepper, which I find I always like in gin. Gives it an edge. Wonderful. But when we're talking about things like Dovey Valley Distillery, Salcombe, Cotswold, premium gins, these guys are right in there, okay? So not necessarily cheap. I think you're pushing 40 quid. 46% though, by the way. So it's a fairly full export strength. Lovely orangey, peppery gin. The Lakes Gin, I have to mention that. Also, the Lakes Vodka, which he also sent to me. Beautifully packaged. I mean, geez, look at that. I mean, it's like a stained glass window. It's like a mullioned Georgian house. I noticed at the top that it says World Vodka Awards 2019. World's Best Vodka. Well, 10 martinis later, I have to concur. Very smooth. I think the wonderful thing about Lakes water is very, very neutral pHs. It's not an alkaline water like we have in the Thames. So the gin has a softness, something that we try to achieve with Langton's. And they've really achieved this with this as well. Beautiful packaging. Again, north of £35. But if you've seen my craft gin shows before, that's where the money is. If you're going to buy really premium gin, then you're paying that kind of money. Now, the other thing is that Cotswold's Gin, these guys, many others, you'll notice that they were doing this exceptionally well. But now they're doing this. They're making whiskey. I think that the more I look at it, the more I realise that people distilling around the country who are really doing a good job, who spent real money on a real copper pot still with a naked flame and expertise and expensive wood, they were never in it to win the gin vodka race. They were in it to win the whiskey race. And since these delicious drinks have been consumed, I've been fortunate enough to be sent and tried some of the Lakes single malt offerings as well. This guy's a serious whiskey producer, serious contender. The Cotswolds malt whiskey, which I've mentioned on my show, is a personal favourite of mine. But I think I've been silent too long about Mr. Gandhi's amazing, amazing whiskies. Okay, this one was drunk as well. This is the Lakes The One, already again pushing £40, north of £40. But these are whiskies I haven't tried yet, apart from the M1, obviously. So, let's do a little kind of stream of consciousness. Let's do a talk about these products. I don't really know which order to try them in, but I thought I'd just do this to give them the credit where credit's due. And what inspired me to do this was this arrived in the post minutes ago, which is the Whiskey Makers Edition Colletta. Colletta means a single vintage tawny port. So this has been aged in Colletta barrels and I believe first fill bourbon barrels as well. It's 52% alcohol, so they're not fucking around. Okay, very, very good. First one here is 46.6. orange wine. This is the one, which is his classic whiskey, the fine blended whiskey. But it's been aged in orange wine barrels. And I just thought, well, does that mean orange wine? Because I'm a wine expert, right? And orange wine is a white wine, which is made like a red wine. You put the skins in and it turns almost orange pink in colour. No, no, no. This was aged in a wine made from oranges. Very excited to try that soon, okay, in the next few minutes. This is the one again, which is the standard whiskey release, but with a sherry finish, aged in sherry casks. And what I have gathered from all of this, and when we come on to this Grandee at the end, which is just a fucking amazing whiskey, we'll find that he has a bit of a soft spot for sherry. I do too. I love sherry barrels in the right context. Sometimes I like a whiskey with no sherry wood. But what sherry gives is whole layers of extra flavour. Layers of extra flavour that really is the difference between vodka and gin, right? Okay, it's an entitled and it's perfectly allowed way of maturing and conditioning your really fiery young spirit. But as it acquiesces, sighs, chills out, takes a pill, starts to grow up, doesn't scream at everything it sees, it also allows it to be infused with the flavour of Old Oloroso sherry, or, as Mr. Gandhi seems to be a very big fan of, PX, which is the most unctuous of sherries. PX sherry is the super, super sweet, concentrated, almost like black treacle. My dear friend JJ Goodman, shout out to you, of London Cocktail Clubs, one of the most important people in the cocktail drinks industry in this country, said to me, yeah, putting stuff in PX barrels though is cheating though, right? Which he kind of is. I think by that what he meant was you could pour a cup of tea into a PX barrel and it would taste 20 times as good. You could probably wee in it and you'd still want to drink it. PX, putting anything in PX barrels is cheating. Yeah, it probably is. Okay, but anyway, so we have the sherry one here. And then we have the one port cask finished. Okay, so that's finished on port cask. The colour is actually not that dark. So I imagine that is not sherried initially. But that was probably in refilled white oak. Maybe old bourbon casks that have been refilled. There's not much colour there. But then you've got this very pale hint. When you look at the label at the back, I don't know if you can see that on the screen. Maybe everything looks slightly pink on this show. But there is a hint of peach about it, which may have come from an old tawny barrel. Okay, so what are we going to try these in? Well, I think we start with number one, the orange wine. Okay, there's my trusty Glencairn glass. This stuff is 46.6%. How are we doing? 7 minutes in. Yeah, this shouldn't be crazy long, this show. Shout out to the Somerton Whisky Club, who very kindly invited me on to their 11-hour virtual show in summer. We had the best time. We even had live music. We had snacks sent to us. We had these incredible whiskies sent to us, and we were on show with lots of people. My friend Matthew Wright from Channel 5, his great chat show for many years. And lots of other people. Colin Hamden Smith. Sorry. Having a lot of things to think about today. But here we are. Colin Hamden White, of course. So, this, I guess, is their whiskey blend, which is, I think, quite malt heavy, from what I remember. I don't know the age of the spirit. I'm not sure that's that important, really. But this has a smell where, you can imagine, if you infuse something with oranges, it would just be orangey, wouldn't it? And I think it's a very powerful smell. It may not be so abrupt, not as aggressive as things like lime, but it does penetrate. But here we've got a barrel that had orange wine in, and you can imagine the oxidised orange artefact that's left behind is this kind of dried orange smell. If you imagine the smell of orange potpourri or dried orange rinds, which are much more caramel than they are orange, I'm really getting a sense of that. Here we have a whiskey which smells not old, but there is proper complexity to the smell. I'm thinking it's probably 4 or 5 years old, to be honest. The palate presence of the orange is much, much greater. I've almost suddenly got a coating of orange oil around the bottom of my jaw. Intense power. 46.6% alcohol, so it does have some intensity to it, of course. Very interesting whiskey. A whiskey I will be mentioning in near future. I'm not sure if any of them are in shot actually on the shelf, but a very innovative whiskey distillery, the first in Sweden, in fact, called Macmyra. And what Double Gandy's doing reminds me a lot of the kind of trajectory they're on, which is innovation to create kind of excitement behind the whole concept of whiskey. And I think what they're doing is taking a lot of hits for the rest of the industry, who are growing safely behind the risks that these guys are taking. So power to you, Mr. Gandy. You're doing a very, very good job. Orange one, yeah, 7 out of 10. I mean, compared to your straight whiskey, which I think is such a good session blend, I think I prefer that. But it's bold. And if you like something with a bit more caramel, a little bit more of that orange hint, I think that I'd probably be much more into this with a little drop of water, cube of ice, around Christmas Day, when we're expecting those sort of smells in the air. I think it's still too summer for me to enjoy that to the extent that I think you would hope I would. Sherry one's the darkest here, but it is the one. Then we've got the one port cask finish. Let's try the port cask finish first. The one port cask finish. This is 46.6% again. This was bottled 6th of November 2019. So it's been this little bottle for well over half a year now. Sorry for my extremely varied choice of glassware, but they're all suitable for the job, I think. The colour, yeah, there is that pale, faint pink. Oh. It really is like smelling the Lakes Scotch through rose-coloured spectacles. I'm sorry, that was too much of a pun, of an analogy. But I can smell the whiskey that I'm used to from their their entry-level house whiskey. But it's through this almost smoky, this veneer of port. Old port changes from a very strong berry fruit to this very oxidized, almost funky, honeyed, maderized fruit. And you've got this wonderful combination of both here. So you've got the whiskey, we're seeing it through this lovely hum of woodland honey and a kiss of dry red fruit like cranberry or something like that. That's a real success. I think that's a lovely drink. These one finishes, I think, tend to retail, if you go on to Master of Malt or something like that, for around your late £40 mark, I think. I think that's about fair. So let's try this. This is the sherry. So let's put that on one side just for now and use the same glass. This is an ISO 9002 glass, which I use for whiskey and wine. Look at the colour on that. Very, very different. See that? Okay, so PX barrels is cheating. That smell is so... Oh, it just smells like I've just picked up a Fortnum & Mason mince pie and I'm just about to put my chomp through that delicious pastry they have. One of the world's greatest things. Fortnum & Mason mince pies, by the way. That's why they can get away with charging 13 quid for 6. Don't muck about with your Marks and Spencers and your Aldi offerings. It's Fortnum & Mason's. Buy them. Pretend Christmas is 2 months late. Buy them in February. You can get them for 3 quid a box. Yeah, that's my tip. That's one this size. Anyway, so... wonderful taste. But the thing is, not just PX dominant. There is this lovely entry. It's not just sweet, dark sherry, really concentrated sweet sherry. There is the lovely rancio, great old Oloroso character in there, which I think that all good sherry-aged whiskies should have. The most famous, the most expensive whiskey on the block is the Macallan, which depends on their amazing expertise at buying different sherry barrels and introducing that flavour into all their different permutations. It's just such a match made in heaven with the flavour of whiskey itself. That sense of heather honey with all those wonderful nutty flavours. Oh, it's hard to describe. Anyway, so instant hit of sweetness from the PX. But underneath there is that rancio, that nutty, spicy. I want meatballs with this. I want a little piece of dried, I don't know, some dried bresaola, some dried beef. air dried or something like that. Be wonderful with food. Super intensity, not shy. Again, 46.6. But so open to sort of complementing different flavours of food. So there you go. Devil's doing a very good job here. So, okay, right. So we're down to the last two. Using my patented port glasses, actually. So in this side, we're going the Winemaker's Edition Colletta, which I think is £65. I think that's going to be the retail. It's literally just been bottled 25th of August this year. And then the Lakes Single Malt Whiskey Makers Reserve number 3. Afraid I didn't try 1 and 2, but I feel rather privileged I'm trying number 3 anyway. What am I talking about here? We're talking about a single malt whiskey from the Lake District, where I was born, bottled at near cask strength of 54% alcohol, with PX, Oloroso and cream sherry casks. Yum, 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 yum. I'm really sorry. I wish I could have waited till Christmas to drink this, because my father-in-law would have loved it. I think I might just have to take the hit and flip and buy a bottle, won't I? All this free drink, you're probably going, oh, you bastard. Anyway, I think I kept the best two till last. Winemaker's Colletta. Next level finesse. Where the others have great balance. There's a definite rusticity and rawness, maybe in youth, that this just doesn't have. This smells a little older, maybe 7 years, maybe. Maybe they're not making whiskey. I don't even know when they started, but it smells a little more mature. Oh, God, it's almost like they've captured the essence of what makes vintage port taste good and just gone, doop, and just put it into a whiskey. %100% single malt. You can feel the density of the barley. You can feel the flatness, the balance, and linearity of the palate in the mouth. It's like a marble surface on which has been thrown the flavours of port, dried fruit, apricots. Quite exotic, quite deep dive into sort of like rich dried fruits. A sense of Christmas before Christmas. Maybe I should mix this with my Christmas liqueur and see what it comes up with, but I'm pretty sure that'll make a seriously banging liqueur or a seriously banging cocktail for Christmas. £65 versus high 30s for the first one. I would buy one of these over 2 of those. This is getting into the realms of very stylish and very sophisticated craftsmanship. Finishing with this, $69.95 I think it is, Master of Malt, the Whiskey Maker Reserve number 3, as I mentioned, aged in cream, Oloroso and PX barrels. What can I say? Every time anybody comes around to my house, I go, you need to try this. I give them a little nip and they go, wow. So yeah, to my personal taste, thinking of different levels of development and so forth, there are 3 amazing English whiskey malt houses that I'm aware of that you should look out for. I apologise with the depth of sincerity that I can only muster for those that I haven't mentioned. But Cotswold, the Lakes, and Bimber in Acton outside London, you guys have got a future. I can only dream of how important you're going to be in the whiskey scene globally in 20 years' time. I do hope that you will succeed in your endeavours. But it's wonderful to be living in a country where such a new and vibrant malt whiskey industry is popping up everywhere, and it's just wonderful. I don't really know what to say about it, but thanks very much, Mr. Gandhi. Cheers. Big up the Lakes Distillery. Don't forget the gin.